let's go into number. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Vita. Yeah. Okay. Let's
Yeah.
go into point number two,
Point number
which
two.
is, yeah, which is
This one,
what do you think other people need to know? Yeah.
yeah. This is for me, point number two is about consent and permissions. And this is the reason we started this conversation, Katrina, was we had done some research on Instagram changing they're changing their API, so their application program interface, basically to make it a heck of a lot harder to be able to take stuff out of Instagram.
Mm.
And we're seeing this as a trend in the ecosystem. It's called ecosystem lock-in, where they want you here. And they actually don't necessarily, unless it's going to feed Instagram, let's say, they don't necessarily want you having that on TikTok or vice versa. And if they do, it's heavily watermarked and it's, yeah, there's some control there. So for the case of consent and permission, I first say, ask yourself what your use case is for any content. And specifically, one of the things MemoryKeeper does is we allow people to gather content really easily. And so specifically when you're gathering content from other people, just pausing to say, what am I using this content for? And what might I reuse it for? To ensure that, like, there's two sides to this. We want to make sure we're protected for our content. We want to make sure that we're being a good citizen when we're using other people's content. And so I think ensuring that you have a clear picture of any content you're getting from anyone else, what its purpose is, and that you have the right consent and permissions yourself to be able to use it. That's, I think, step one is we all just be really good role models. And we have in MemoryKeeper, when you gather content, there is a disclaimer. So basically when people share their content with you, they can answer this. Do I own the asset? Am I giving you the ability to reuse it? And I'm giving you the ability to reuse it without the expectation for monetization or a credit and things like that. It's like, however you use it, whatever system you use, if you're gathering content, make sure you're covering your own butt and you're being really clear with the people you're working with as to how you will use their content. Because like I said, ours and some others, third parties solutions will cover that for you. But if you're not using one of those, just make sure that you've got that really clear. The way we do it is like if it's been through a disclaimer, it's marked differently in your content library. You can reuse it, you can share it differently, it can get copied to other stories. If it hasn't been, you can't.
Right.
It's just yours and you own it and that's it. So considering what consent and permission looks like for the content you're getting, and then also for your own content. If you're creating a post somewhere, is this something that you're creating a post on social media, let's say, or even you're making a MemoryKeeper or a landing page or whatever it may be, is it something I'm allowing other people to be able to use? Do I have the rights even to say that? And consider how you're using it, where you're using it, and whether you're giving an implied consent without meaning to. So let me think of an example here. Let's say someone sends in a testimonial and you're going to put it on your social media, contemplating that you've got that person said yes, that you can, that you have a record of it, that you keep that media in a different spot so that you know you're allowed. And I lean back to Indigenous data sovereignty a lot. Not because every piece of content we have is falls under an Indigenous data sovereignty blanket, but that it's just such a good best practice. So do I have the permissions? Do I have access? The premise there is access control, ownership, and possession. So think about who actually had the original access control, possession, ownership of that asset, and can I use it? And they'll just, yeah, I wouldn't like, I think all I'm saying is understand the solutions you're using, understand who else is owning it. Like if it's social media, know that other people may own that. And so make sure you have the rights for the things you're using so that it can get shared. But then the other thing I would say is understand the future of these platforms is they're getting more and more protectionism, which in general terms means it's going to be harder to get your stuff out of there. So you may still own it. But if you want to use something you created in Instagram for, I don't know, a campaign you're doing in a landing page, it might be harder to get to use those same things.
That's really interesting. Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
for me, from my perspective, whenever I'm, taking a photo of somebody, I almost always immediately say, are you okay with this photo? Or, are you
Yeah.
okay if I post this? I'll even do it by there. But, I'm thinking it's probably, just to be safe, right? For in the future and stuff, just taking
Mhm.
that next level could be really powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think generally, like, um, I'll think of an ex event, for example. Oftentimes when you go to an event, you buy a ticket, you're clicking I give consent if I show up in any pictures,
Yes.
right then and there. If people use our app, and there are other apps like ours where you're submitting photos directly, there's the consent in there. If you're submitting a image to social media, it's an implied consent. Like the true rules are you're sharing the original post, and so you're crediting the original author and the original owner of the content. Um, so just thinking through those pieces. But also I think that's at a micro scale. If we think at a macro scale, and it's 20 years from now, we've talked about this with kids and sports. What you're putting out there is out there. And it's out there for now and potentially forever. So pardon me, as organizations thinking about what your long-term strategy is for managing content, housing it and keeping your archives, and just keeping kind of some of that stuff organized so you know pardon me, what's out there, and whether you're going to want it to be in 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, what the impacts of that are. It's hard to wrap our heads around. Like right now, it's like, so what? It's a picture,
Yeah.
or it's a testimonial, or um, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it implied that you'd share it? But is that fair? You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah. All
And
right.
if it's not that kind of conversation, what are your other options?
Yeah.
Like we have a group in the US there. It's a FDA approved medical device. It's aids people who are struggling with conceiving a child. It's a really great company, female founder. But they have a QR code on the inside of the box of the product. And so they have a memory keeper story. And the only people who get the pathway to that story are people who have purchased the product and are in the same boat. They've created such a beautiful network of community. Like, so I challenge you to ask yourself, yeah, does it have to be on social media always, or will it be better if it's on, and whether it's MemoryKeeper or Mighty Networks, or any of the private solutions, that maybe you want to start cultivating a more private network as well.
I love that because that's a real deal thing, right? We've had several clients who just suddenly, really for no apparent reason, and we've been unable to appeal it to, just lose their page on Facebook
Oh,
or, or something like that. And so having options or places maybe that's,
yeah.
even compiling everything into one place could be really valuable too.
Yeah, and yeah, the research says about 200, between 250 and 300,000 people daily lose their social media accounts. So especially for the marketing folks that know how much time you put into making that little clip for that Instagram post, or that, like, you want to be able to reuse those assets. And we do have a solution right now where you can go and link to Instagram, back
Mhm.
up your social media. But it will be impacted with that API change with Instagram. So if you
Let's
have
dive right
social
into that.
medias,
Yeah,
pardon me.
let's dive right into that, into the
Okay.
API change for Instagram, because I think
Okay.
a few people are like, whoa, what's coming up?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically, like in layman's terms, what they're doing is they're making it, we all used to, and we still do, but be able to have this plugin basically. So that API. So you'd show up, and let's say it's your MemoryKeeper account or another, there's certain other accounts that I can think of where, and you'd link it to your Instagram, and it would copy everything from Instagram. That's what happens with MemoryKeeper. You go in, you go to your content library, go to Instagram, and then you select all the content you want, and it brings it in, and it just makes a copy so you have a backup. And it's 2 clicks, so it's super easy. They're making it so that all of those APIs, so whether it's our product or another, we're working on our own solution. But basically it's making it so that you can't do that anymore. It's going to be, and don't worry, we're going to try and figure it out so that we can still make it easy for you. But it's not easy. Like, they're taking all the API integration so that you can plug into export away. So
So
we can still do hashtag capture, but the export, like the click and all your stuff's backed up somewhere other than Instagram, they're making it harder. And they did this with groups only in Facebook in February. And I think we'll continue to see this, like you can keep it here, but you can't get it out.
Yeah. The thing that I'm wondering about even is we have our Instagram on the bottom of our website, right? It just pulls it in through our
Right.
Squarespace
That'll
account,
probably
and
be
that'll
impacted
probably
too.
be affected. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so anybody who's pulling Instagram into any
Yeah.
of your other platforms will probably be seeing this as well.
Yeah.
And, so what's a practical thing then, that people can do
Yeah.
to hold on to their stuff while they still can kind of get it
Yeah.
out of the platform?
Yeah. I mean, I hate to just put memoryKPR. It just happens
Yeah.
to be the solution I know well,
Yeah.
because I helped build it. But whether it's memoryKPR or you can Google other social media backups, but memoryKPR is one of the easiest ones in that you can create a free account, and you can get up to 50 pieces of content. So you go into your content library, you click the add button, and it can take you right to Instagram, and you pull everything in it somewhere else. The other way, there is a manual download through Instagram itself. Um, it's a couple more steps than a third-party solution because we're all trying to make it easy for you, obviously. That you can go and you can request basically a file document. Should have had that link to put in the chat, but I can send it to share with you after. But where you can request the downloadable link, and then once you get it, you can go in, you can download all the content. I'd recommend trying to do it before December 7th because
Mhm.
that's when they're making the changes.
Yeah.
And really after that, your best solution is actually, I mean, like I said, ourselves and others are working on what the solution will be. We'll still be able to capture hashtags. So the short-term solution will be adding a hashtag to every one of your posts because hashtags will still be able to be captured.
Mhm.
I don't know why they decided that, but they have, and so we'll go with it. And we do, and probably who you use to have your Instagram on the bottom of your page, there's
Mhm.
all those solutions you can add hashtags to it as well.
Okay.
So yeah, the kind of band-aid fix will be to add a hashtag to all the posts that you get and use a hashtag capture solution. And I think there are many more of those. We are one, but there are many on the market as well.
Yeah. But that's actually a really cool thing too, like talking about pulling in that entire hashtag, especially for those who've kind of owned a hashtag. Like,
Yes.
yeah, it's interesting when we were doing the Saskatchewan Tech hashtag, we went with SK Tech, but there's an entire community of people who do sketches but spell it wrong. And
Oh,
so,
really?
yeah. And so if you go to the SK Tech, hashtag,
Yeah.
you're going to see a real mix of Saskatchewan technology things, but also a bunch of people who are kind of mixing in the sketches. So, just a curiosity about, when you're pulling that all in, is there a way to filter that type of information so you could say, I love, these sketches are beautiful, but not what we're looking for. We'd love to bring the rest of this together. Is there an
Yeah.
easy way to do that?
Yeah. I mean, we and many other hashtag capture solutions have a couple things. So there's typically an AI filter that will say, like, we've had a similar experience with the Rough Riders. So it's Rider Green, I think is one of the hashtags. And there is a dirt bike group in Brazil that
Oh, yeah.
uses the same hashtag. So you're able to actually, provide some basic things to AI to say it should be more along this line. So it should be more along football fans, it should not be motorbikes. And so there are some solutions where you have AI that can kind of do a first filter for you.
Mhm.
And then the other way, like I know for ourselves and I'm sure other solutions as well, you do have the ability to say that it's not published until you approve it.
Okay.
And so if you had a big event and you are capturing hashtags and user-generated content direct from users, you could have a moderator on that's actually physically approving all those, or you could use an AI moderator that gets it 90% of the way there. Typically with the AI moderator, if anything, it's going to block more. So it's going to be extra safe, and then you can go and say, no, you can publish these.
Yeah.
So those are the solutions for something like that. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And let's talk about youth a little bit, or vulnerable populations. People that they might be talking about something difficult, or they might be, talking about something private, period, whatever that looks like. Actually, you and I are working on a white paper right now around youth and sports and some of the things that they need to be thinking about with their digital experiences. But maybe you could tell the story, because I think the beginning of that white paper is really powerful, about
My own experience.
volleyball. Yeah, your
Yeah.
experience. Yeah, I'd love to hear that story.
My own like naive,
Yeah.
creepy experience. Here's
Yeah.
what happened. Another parent made a Facebook page for our group, and then their daughter got injured and they left. And so they had assigned two of us just as backups because we could film the games. And then they were gone. And so all of a sudden we were the owners of the page. And so this page was meant for the team. We did some live streaming when the games were on from this Facebook page. And I just had no idea. And I do this research. I know we've done some work with Cheer USA. I know there are bad actors online. But within weeks, the amount of requests I got, and at first every request I got, I was like, well, it doesn't match any of the last names of the players. I actually think I was like this close to probably just adding them all at first. And then one name stood out to me as really weird. So I went and started looking at these profiles. None of these people were parents. None of these people were even in our geographic region. I'm sad to say this is a 17-year-old volleyball team. A lot of them were middle-aged men, or their profiles looked like middle-aged men. I don't know if they were real profiles or bots. I think there was a combination of both, that were, I guess, probably searching and trying to add themselves to these clubs to get access to our private, parents chat and game schedule. And I know we've had conversations with Cheer USA as well, where they're concerned from two angles. They've had people actually show up at meets because they feel like they're getting to know these people on social media. And these are 10-year-old girls that are made up for their cheer competition. And then these bad actors are showing up because they know where they're at. There was a case in the US where someone put a tracker on one of the cheerleaders' cars after, and they knew where they were, where the practice was, all because of things that were put on social media. The other side to social media and groups like Cheer is that some of these young adults are becoming influencers, and they actually want to control what's put on social media for themselves, as opposed to getting the club to decide. So yeah, there's an interesting dance there right now, I think.
Yeah, where it's
Yeah.
almost like, so to create like a micro, so that's almost a solution in its form, that you're
Yeah.
providing, of course, but there are other
Yeah.
other
Yeah,
platforms.
absolutely.
It's creating communities, when you're taking care of your vulnerable people, that are offline, that they're not public to other people, and giving people that control can
Exactly.
be that powerful piece.
And that there's just a couple more checks of consent as to, did you want this to be here? Do you want other people to be able to see it? That are really important. I think, then the next one I had 5, I was like secure,
Let's go. Let's come
secure
back to the
storage and access was the
yeah.
next one, is like making sure, and I think vulnerable populations is an important one. You can always access it. You can always take it down and it be gone, not, still all the copies be out there. And that you yourself as the owner have access to control a little bit. I still want people to be able to see this. I don't. And you can do that on social media. You can do that with private platforms and on social media to some degree. You're never going to be able to stop someone who's going to screenshot.
Yeah.
But at least the beauty of that is, it's not beauty, but the comfort, I guess, is that they're not doing it by the proper channels, and they clearly can't defend or demonstrate that they have the rights to reuse that image. So there's that, at least. The other thing with secure storage is like we talked about, even backing up your social, wherever it is that you have your content, do you either A, have it somewhere else, or B, does the place you have it have a backup that is a duplicate that's somewhere else? And those are things to consider. A lot of private solutions do. We have Dropbox. There's lots of them that will do the backup is in a different spot, and it's protected. And so, the most you could ever lose is really like a 30-minute window between backups. or duplications. Social media, not so much. Social media, it's like we've talked about, it's easier to, if it goes away, it can go away. You can often get your username reinstated and your original account, but rarely are you able to get the original content that was in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've worked with lots of businesses to try and help them first. Yeah, and normally you'll get your user name back, sometimes your followers, sometimes not.
Mm-hmm.
And but the rest is, yeah, you're
Which
starting
of
all over
course,
again.
that's what a lot of people are building that for, is their audience, their followers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah. And then
I
I think
wonder too if we could talk AI for just a second.
let's talk AI. Let's
Okay.
do it. Let's dive in.
And I'm not going deep.
Yeah.
I'm not that deep. So but I just think when we're talking about data ownership and control, and I'll go back to summarizing it. Where are you putting your stuff? Is it backed up? Who else owns it? What's the data they're getting from it? Like, are you asking your clients to go somewhere and then now their data is being sold? And so those are kind of the things all my babbling was meant to make points on earlier. But also AI is, what AI are you using and what are you putting in it? And I'm going to use the example of, I was in a board meeting. We were having a confidential discussion about another document. It was a public document, so it's not the end of the world. And this individual said, well, I just put it in ChatGPT and asked it to summarize. And I think it's really important for us. We have some AI in our product, but it's really important, whatever the product is, for you to understand the difference between an existing model of AI, which I think is just like this folder with a bunch of, like, let's say ours is a bunch of, we have a pre-existing, it's a great big album that says, this is what wine will look like in a picture. This is what a baby will look like in a picture. So you go in our content and you search, or you go in your own content library and search wine. It's using that model to find the picture of wine or the picture of baby. But what it's not doing is taking what you have in here and informing this model to make it smarter. And knowing the difference between an open source, like a ChatGPT, which is taking everything that you're putting in it, and also using that knowledge to inform a model and educate a model to answer differently next time, versus something like Microsoft Pilot or how MemoryKPR uses it, where what you're putting in it isn't informing the model. And I think when we talk about data and consent and privacy, that's just the next thing we need to consider is open source for AI versus a closed source is really different in regards to whether you're just leveraging AI to make yourself faster and better, or whether you're leveraging AI and also training it, and what you're saying is going back into this like AI brain, because you wouldn't want to put anything confidential or yeah. So just recognizing the difference between, is this an open source AI or a closed source? And honestly, sometimes I even just Google it, like, is this an open source or closed source AI? And it'll tell me, because yeah, you're probably not going through the whole terms and conditions, but I think that's relevant to talk about too, because we're going to just get more and more and more.
Yeah, I agree. I have
And
a lot of opinions about the AI space, as
yeah,
you know.
yes,
One of the things that's quite interesting is quite a few groups who are using AI from the technology perspective. They're actually putting these transparency statements. So they'll actually put, like, here's
great. Yeah,
exactly how we're using your data or not
yes,
to teach this. The thing that I find is missing always in those transparency statements is, where did you get the data in the first place? Was
yeah,
it ethically sourced
yes,
place, or did you just steal that from somewhere, and
yeah.
you're using someone else's content and data to teach your
That's
stuff?
a great
So,
point.
yeah,
Yeah. So A, did you get it the right way? And B, is it even credible?
yeah,
Right? Yeah.
is
The
important.
other thing that scares me with AI, and we're just starting to see, like, I've seen some videos, and that is, and this was back to the kids in sports, is taking youth imagery, youth video. We've seen it even with like the Taylor Swift example, is people are taking imagery, using AI, changing the story and trying to represent it as truth. And yeah, I saw a video recently. It was a video shown to parents, but it was made of their daughter, and just the stuff they found publicly online, and they were able to replicate her look, her voice, her, you know, the video seemed as though it was her. And it wasn't, obviously, but so starting to get, like, I understand why these social platforms are getting more protection. They want to keep you there, but as citizens and as businesses thinking about, what's the future risk of this being out there and other people using it? And is there a way to have more private solutions?
Yeah.
They're
Oh,
out there, but they're not mainstream like us. We're like we're not household names because people aren't generally thinking about this until they lost their account, something got stolen. And so it's still, I think you're right, we're still catching up to where we need to go. And I suspect this conversation will just get louder and louder over the next 10 years. I hope.
I think so. I hope so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Yeah.
And we actually did a webinar a couple weeks ago on misinformation, and there's a lot of information in there about that too. The idea of deep fakes and what the future could be looking
Yeah.
like, as people need to be worrying about their own credibility. Like for me, I'm like, I've been online and putting my content out there for years. I'm done for.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Same.
yeah, but it's not my, I don't want to be doing that, for example, for my staff or for,
Yeah.
the people, our clients, things like that. I want to be sure that
Yeah.
um, people understand, the risks, I guess, of putting their content on with anything that we're sharing and that sort of thing. And a majority, in the future, I always say this is why we can't have nice things because I think a lot of people, will probably avoid, participating in social media and putting
Yeah.
content up simply to avoid some of these risks as
Yeah.
well. And
And even the algorithm, like, that's one of the things we tote, and it's whether it's ourself or another solution or a landing page, but being able to experience a whole story as opposed to something else deciding the parts of it I get to see.
Mhm.
Like, we think we're putting our stuff on social media as for businesses, and then maybe, like, I think it's about 7% of your followers are going to see the content you put up
Yeah, yeah,
because the algorithm decides. So
yeah.
not having a space where you can tell a whole story without an algorithm is, yeah,
It's unusual.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's far more impactful. We liken ourselves, and this would be the same if other, like I said, whether it's a landing page or other private social solutions or storytelling solutions, but we liken it to like the food court versus a restaurant. And like the food court is like, yeah, you're there, but so are all your competitors. And someone's standing in line for your business, but the next door neighbor comes and brings a coupon and says, look at this flashy thing. And you're looking around and you're distracted and people are, versus you go to the restaurant and you control every aspect of that guest's experience from when they walk in the door. That's kind of when you think of like social media versus maybe a more private social or storytelling platform, what the differences will be, besides the fact that you're also, yeah, having that privacy, ownership, consent, a little bit more control. Yeah.
I love that. And, just a few things too. I'm just going to pop in some things that have just popped in my mind over
Yes,
this
please.
conversation. So, one of the things that you're going to want to think about as a communications person or a person with a business, there's actually a couple of reasons for this, is your privacy policy on your website. So that's actually a real thing. And again, a lot of us are just using legalese, right? Some people are
Mhm.
cutting and pasting from other people's
Yeah.
privacy policies
Yeah.
just to get it done because it's all the startups don't want to pay a lawyer, all that kind of stuff. So one of the things you may want to be thinking about is, making that plain language, right? To be like, here as an organization, here is our commitment to you and your privacy and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Because we've talked a lot about content creation, but there's data loss and, in
Yeah.
cybersecurity risks of too much information about our clients in our system.
Yes.
So, and that, the double bonus of ensuring that you have a privacy policy on your website that, just declares to your clients, hey, here's what we're going to do with your stuff. Every two
Yeah.
years, we're purging everything, so that we don't
Yeah.
have you in our system if you're no longer involved. Things
Yeah.
like that you want to be thinking about and what makes sense for your organization. The best part about this too is that it's massive for SEO right now, search engine optimization, and
Yes.
getting Google to actually come to your site. We've noticed with several of our clients that their organic traffic, they used to have a lot, but they don't have a privacy policy. And it was back in March of this
Oh,
year that Google
really?
actually put it out that if you don't have a very clear privacy policy on your website, it's not going to send traffic there. So organic traffic that, you've been
That's
working a lot of
great.
years to try to
Yeah.
get people to your site will also be impacted. So there's kind of a double reason why you probably want to put your privacy policy on your website.
And
But think about it, yeah, not just that cut
oh,
and paste, right? But thinking
yeah, I was
about
gonna say, I like your,
yeah.
and this is what we did is kind of, we'd have a letter from the founder at the beginning, like, yeah, there's a lot of legal words behind this, but here's what we mean. You own
Yeah.
your content. We only gather agnostic data. We'll get rid of your customer, um, details after these details after this point. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing that says, like, when I go into one of those documents and it's 400 pages and I don't understand it, I don't think this person wants to do business with me.
Right.
They're like it or not. So actually what you just suggested, yeah, it does also leave a tone for your brand.
Hmm.
Like, we're here, we want to make it easy, we want to work with you.
Yeah. And there
Sorry,
are
and your
some
next
lawyers
point.
out there who are making a lot of these things like plain language and stuff. So
Yeah,
lean into that, right? If
yeah,
you find a plain language privacy policy, like one that's written in a way that people can actually understand
yeah.
it,
They might
nice,
read it.
short, palatable,
Yeah.
that's the way to go, I think. And
Yeah.
so another thing too that's just a trend that's coming in. Sorry, Jessica, I'm like bringing this all out from
Oh, no, no,
other
no.
people's
I'm
here, but
appreciating this.
yeah, is the concept of the right to forget. And this is actually really coming out of the EU, and where people there actually can call up any business that they're doing any sort of business with, whether that's online or whatever, and say, I want you to forget that I ever engaged with you. And
That's
and so
brilliant.
you then at that point as a business need to go through any sort of engagement. So you need to go through if they're on your newsletter list,
Yeah.
completely delete that, make sure it's clearly,
Yeah.
again, you can only do so much in terms of
Yeah.
clearing it from the software, but
Yeah.
newsletter lists, anything that, maybe in internal emails that you had with that person, you need to delete those. There's several different steps that you need to go through in the right to forget. And it can be quite expensive for a small business or just time consuming too, for somebody to have to do that. So for me, the big thing about that right to forget is for us as practitioners to actually have those things in place ahead of time, and business owners have those things
Great.
in place ahead of time, where if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I want
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
forgotten. I do not want to
Yeah.
be in, and I could see that even catching on throughout North America and throughout the world too, just having that that really clearly laid out and be like, here are the places that we capture data. We capture data through our newsletter. We capture
Yeah.
data on our website, but it's anonymized, so we
Yeah.
wouldn't do
Yeah.
that. We capture data, and you just have that listed out so that you as a company actually understand where you're gathering that data from people. So if
Yeah.
you ever get a request like that or something along those lines, that gives you that option. Oh, I think can we get you to mute? Yeah. So wonderful.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is the EU's doing, like, they're
Mhm.
just miles ahead of where we are with AI, with data privacy. We do try, when we build anything new that's customer facing, and I think it's a good practice is looking at what the EU is doing first, because
Yes.
I assume and I hope that we'll get to where they are
Mhm.
someday.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you have anybody that you're working with from that
Yeah.
space, they also have those rights.
Yeah,
And yeah,
exactly.
yeah. And
Yeah.
whether it's legal or not in, North America, I think you have that right anyway,
Yeah. I think you should.
Yeah.
Yeah. If
Yeah.
someone reached out to us and said, forget we interacted,
Hmm.
my reaction wouldn't be no.
Yeah. No, you
No.
are
Your
getting this
reaction would be,
newsletter.
of course. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a good time. I think, there's a few people out there who I can see are listening intently. I'm gonna actually do a shout out to my cousin Louise Stewart.
Hello.
Yeah, she owns an amazing business in real estate business. So
Oh, very good.
yeah, so a lot of pieces there. Anyway, just also, out to the group, are there any things that are crossing your mind about privacy where you're like, hey, I really want to know this for my business for either, a risk assessment or for just doing best practices? Feel free to toss it out. And if you don't have any questions, like this is fairly new information to a lot of people too, that's okay too. This is just an introduction, but yeah, we're here to answer questions about these particular pieces.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So And sorry, I didn't realize my mute wasn't on and I was eating at the beginning.
Oh yeah. It's all right. We didn't hear
Um,
you.
but oh, good. So our world is a little bit different because you guys, like, whenever we're dealing with I'm going to say a specific listing, when it either sells or it expires or whatever, we need to always be removing it because we're legally not allowed to advertise it afterwards. That's in the Real Estate Act. So if it comes to this Instagram and what you guys were talking about, am I going to have troubles like deleting these things from Instagram in the future?
As long as it's in Instagram and you go into Instagram to delete it, you should be okay. Like you'll be able to still, yeah, you'll be able to still be in Instagram and delete Instagram posts. It's just if you had any sort of third party that took everything out of Instagram and kept it, whether it's for reuse or on another platform, that you'll have troubles. And actually, and I will say, if it's Instagram to any Meta product, like if it's Threads or Facebook, it should still be easy because they want to make it easy just inside their fence.
Okay, because I think most of our stuff is going from Facebook to Instagram. So as we're deleting it on one, it should just delete it on both then.
Should.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think
Good.
it depends on your account settings, but if they're linked to begin with, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Phew, right?
And
Yeah,
thank you for the whole thing on the website because I am going to do that privacy thing because that's huge. Like, you're
yeah.
right.
It's massive. Yeah, no, and again, we've just seen it across the board, and it wasn't really well publicized, I found, because most people just don't know about it. We didn't even know about it until we started having issues with ads, and we're like, ads are performing great, but all this other stuff, right? Like, where did our organic traffic go? And so we had to do some some research on those particular areas too. So
yeah, we've worked even with some SEO experts, and I mean, we have a privacy statement, but it's never come up. That's a good pearl of wisdom there.
Yeah, and not only, like you can put on your website, and Neil Patel is a person I follow quite closely. He's excellent. He does a lot of work on search engine optimization. He's got this free SEO checklist, that he does, and on there's actually a way for you to register your website, and he has a step-by-step and everything about registering your website with Google and Bing, both of the major search engines.
Yeah.
So that basically, even though you put it up, you can actually then send your website map. Essentially, you map it with those groups so that they know your privacy policies on there. So you can just do it and put it up on your site, but it might take a little while for Google to realize that you have it there. So if you want more of an immediate reaction, also add it. So we'll toss that link into the follow-up as well, with the blog post that Jessica shared, as well as that link too, just for people to understand how to let Google know that you've added a privacy policy, so you get some more action faster than you would if you just put it up and didn't let them know.
Yes. Yeah, none of it's fun. It's not as fun as making the pretty content or having the engaging discussions, but until it's not, right? Until it bites you in the butt somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you wish you had. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it's, this is sort of a weird place because it's a bit of risk analysis. It's a bit of an ethical conversation about how you want to run your business. But I believe in the future, it's going to be crucial. So if we're setting up our base right now to be, really thinking about this, no matter what your business is, I think that's what's going to be the benefit here, is that we've all been kind of running around blind, but people are starting to call this out, and it's going to become more and more of an issue. Yeah.
And I think we were like, oh, social media showed up and it was cool and we could share, and we stopped asking the questions about what it was for and just kind of used it for everything because it was the only solution that was there. But I think, yeah, in the future, like everything, we'll advance and we'll figure it out.
Are there any other questions out there in the audience? It's okay if it's a bit of a quieter group, that's all right.
I just want to make one more point, if I could,
please.
too. Last year and this year are the first years where we're actually starting to see trending down for social media, from growth. And so the other question I think we start asking ourselves, and we probably have a little bit of time, is how else are we getting to our audience if they're not on social media? Because we are starting to see people checking out.
Yes. Yeah. And I love that. I think that's a really valuable point. You know, in some components, it's like, you know, you're running out of people, which
Yeah, there's that.
But there's also the other side of it is there are a lot of people who are just like, I'm out.
Yeah.
You know, we saw a mass exodus from X or Twitter when Elon took over. You know, there's just a lot, you know, these things are always moving and changing. And yeah, it's interesting because, you know, even audiences, you build them on certain platforms and all of a sudden that platform is no longer relevant. And so there it is. You know, there's a lot of things that are always changing. And I think privacy is going to be, you know, even one of those things that's coming in deeper and deeper into people's decision-making factors.
Yeah.
So,
Email marketing might stay king for a while.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Keep their emails.
Yeah. That's right. Thank you, Carmen, for saying great info and a lot to think about. You know, this has been an important conversation, and we'll give people like 2 or 3 minutes back, you know, their day, and we'll wrap this up. But before we go, Jessica, you know, thank you so much. How can people find you? How can they, you know, get involved with MemoryKeeper or find you directly?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, Jessica McNaughton. I'll find my profile and put it in there. Feel free to reach out direct, and memorykeeper.com. It's memoryKPR.com. If you want to check us out or find me. Our blogs are there. We do have some about privacy, and also just about like photo sharing and digital content. And yeah, LinkedIn and or write it on the MemoryKeeper website. There's contact information for myself and our team.
I love that. And as a reminder, Ethical Digital is here to help you with your digital campaigns, training, certification, all that kind of good stuff. If you want to talk about this further, we think about these types of things. So would love to partner with certain people or, you know, if you need to, you know, if you need a service in order to help you with. So join our membership group. Thank you so much for coming out, everybody. These are important conversations, and we're always glad to be sharing them with people. So thank you.
Thank you all for allowing me to have some of your lunch hour too.
Okay. Have a good day, everybody.